Welcome into the best damn college football show out there. We got Ralph Michaels. I am Drew Martin. Robbie Veno will be joining us a little bit later, but Ralph Michaels on Twitter at CalSportsLV. Welcome in, buddy. How you feeling?
Hey, doing good, bud. You got those Wager Talk TV numbers there, Drew? Have we hit 60,000 yet, or are we still like 10 away?
I'm pretty sure we're just short of it, but it's
no better happen this show right now.
We'll likely get there, man. And this show's success is pretty crazy as well. Not only the views, the viewer retention, people watching a long time, which is very important. So we really appreciate it out there. I know Ralph does, Robbie does, I do. Shout out to the chat box right now. Tim, Mike Campbell, Guitar Rat, all you guys. Welcome in. Davy Jones, Benjamin Holtz. You guys are great out there. Tony Mack as well, and Johnny Outlaw. Guys, we're going to be breaking down 3 games in full with a degenerate special as well, plus best bets at the end. We got BYU, Boise State on Friday night. We're breaking down the cocktail party there in Jacksonville, Florida, and Georgia. Also, Clemson and Notre Dame for Saturday night, the degenerate special. You'll have to wait and see 10:30 Eastern kick on that one. Best bets at the end. But Ralph, anything you wanted to throw out there, like on your mind, Vegas-wise? It is Election Day. Also, really this segment about what you've learned so far this season. Anything last week that you think bettors should know about?
Well, look, bringing up Election Day, Drew, if you go to Wager Talk or Sports Memo today and you buy any single package, Vote 2020 will get you 50% off that daily package today. So Sports Memo or Wager Talk, Vote 2020, again, 50% off any daily package. Be it $1 off a $2 capper, be it $20 off a 5% play. Take advantage. Again, we want you to vote. Even if you didn't, that the coupon code applies. Looking year to date right now, home favorites year to date, 46.2%. That, of course, means away dogs at a 55.8% clip. Over-unders year to date, 51.4% to the over. So not the same numbers that coincide to the NFL where we had all those overs. One thing I will mention, though, two of the biggest four upsets of the entire season happened college football week 1 in the Big Ten, Michigan State, Maryland, Minnesota, and then Michigan State, Michigan. Remember, with these conferences starting off, if you like some dogs, sprinkle a little bit on that money line with the MAC and with the Pac-12 this week, because there's so much uniqueness to this season, especially that, things just may not pan out. So, if you're ever going to take a long shot, if you're going to ever take that long shot, try it this week with the first week of action in both the MAC and the Pac-12.
I love that, Ralph. I totally agree with you. We saw it out the gate this college football season, no matter what conference you're talking about. We got the MAC starting on Wednesday night. Sprinkle a little bit on that money line because it speaks to the volatility in college football. And if you're going to take a shot on an underdog, put it on the points plus the money line.
Especially the MAC. In the last 5 MAC championships, there have been 9 different teams. This is not Clemson dominating the ACC. This is not Ohio State dominating the Big Ten. This is not Alabama. Anybody is available. Hell, Akron has 19 returning starters this year. Yeah, they're the worst team in the MAC. Yeah, they're 1-12 ATS their last 13. But, I have Akron so close to the top. There's no closer divisions from top to bottom where anyone could knock it off. And, to win the MAC conference, I looked at those odds. You're probably going to be 5-1 and you're going to win the MAC conference. There's going to be so many 4-2 and 3-3 teams. You pull one upset, that may be enough to win the entire to get you to win the MAC.
Yeah, and it's such a short season here, Ralph, that, if there's COVID issues for some of these teams, I believe you only have to have 3 games logged in to qualify for the championship game, right? So if you go 3-0, you might find
that's what the MAC said. Don't quote me on that because I didn't read the article close enough. But yeah, they did work in some premise that what happens if there's some COVID issues. So, you pull that big upset early, and I'm going to say this. I mean, the MAC odds, I think the top 5 teams are all 6-1. Then you have a couple 9-1s. I think Akron's at 100-1. But, Akron and Bowling Green are obviously the 2 teams that are the longest shots. But hell, in this season, if there's someone you sort of like, it's worth $1 or $2 just to throw it on there.
Yeah, for sure. Good stuff starting with some action. And guys, we do have a show coming up a little bit later today, actually after this one, breaking down all the games in the MAC with mid-major Matt. So we do have Robbie Veno joining us here, guys. We should be good to go, both audio and video. Robbie, let us know. How you feeling today?
I'm feeling good, guys. Can you hear me? Everything good?
Yep. We're good. We're good.
All right, then here's a late pen raise because I'm late to the party here. Internet is fabulous. I was just listening to what Ralph said, so I counted up my MAC power ratings to see how many teams were in that clump. I have 8 teams, guys. 9 teams within 3.5 points power rated of each other, just to show you what a mess that league could be this year. Buffalo obviously up top with Miami, and between Miami and the 9th team, just a real cluster there. I'll go fast, guys, because I don't want to spend a lot of time here. But with stuff that we saw last week, Oklahoma State probably played themselves out of a potential Final Four spot. Statistically, they destroyed Texas on the scoreboard. They lose. Big Ten results, not what we thought they were the first week. They really flipped in the second week. I have to stop right here, though, because on Twitter, on Saturday, we've done about 20, 25 shows now together as a trio. I've never seen Ralph upset, but I read a tweet posted by Ralph about the Indiana Hoosiers on Saturday, and I was like, what the heck is Ralph so upset about? I had the same game, Indiana, and I had missed the play he was talking about. For those who missed it, those 20 laterals that looked like they ended up in a point spread covering touchdown for Rutgers. Ralph, I see why you were so upset now.
Yeah, and they had gone down and scored. They were, Indiana was up 20 some points. So it happened to be my early Monday post, and it was a 5% play. I had Indiana over Rutgers. So if you didn't watch the play, Google it. I think how many pitchbacks were there?
Yeah, I mean, that was just a rough estimate, but by my
12, I think 12 or 13 at least.
Yeah.
And they called a touchdown. And then on the review, I'll give credit to the studio announcer who was the ref. He picked it out right away before, where I was looking and I didn't see it live. So it beats the band. It beats the band play by at least four or five reverse pitches.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy for anybody who didn't see it. Let me wrap up here quick, guys, so we can get to games. Bo Pelini still can't coach defense. Auburn puts up 48. I know 14 were on defensive scores, but that guy's got to go. You see it in Ed Ogeron's face right now after 5 games. He just doesn't know what to do with the defense. And where Sunbelt Drew, where has the Arkansas State offense gone? 2 games in a row now where Arkansas State just cannot move the football through the air. Incredibly poor performance against Troy on Saturday. So with that, I'll turn it over, buddy. You can get us going.
Let me ask you one question, Rob, real quick.
Yeah.
Should he switch, and should Blake Anderson just go to 1 QB? I hate the 2 QB rotation.
Yeah.
And he just sticks with it. I don't get it.
Yeah, you know what, Ralph? It could be the answer. I mean, it did work for a few games. We remember the season opener. But, boy, the last 2 weeks, and I get 2 weeks ago it was against a good defense, Sunbelt-wise, but against Troy, Hatcher and Bonner and Adams, they should have put up a lot more than they did. And, it cost me a play on Saturday, so maybe I'm just bitter, but it is 2 weeks in a row where that team hasn't moved the football.
Yeah, Robbie, my wallet's a little lighter because of the Red Wolves as well. And I'll tell you, I'm not a guy that's like totally opposed to the 2 quarterback system, because we've seen it work sometimes in college football, but I like it a little bit more when each of the quarterbacks that they're rotating brings something different to the offense. And I don't think there's enough of, separation in what they bring to have both of them play. I'd rather have a guy that's like more of the athlete running guy, and then another guy that's like a pocket passer throwing the ball downfield. Bonner and Hatch, it's almost like they're too similar.
Yeah, it's not Matt Corral and John Rice Plumlee, right? Where you have 2 different guys that you can shake the defense up a little bit with. I mean, he's got to try something at this point. Maybe they do go to just one of those guys. We'll see what happens for Arkansas State down the road here. But just surprising that they couldn't move the ball Saturday.
Yeah, good stuff there, Robbie. Follow him on Twitter at Rob Veno Sports, Ralph on Twitter at Cal Sports LV. Find him at wagertalk.com. And guys, remember, it is election day. Vote 2020 is the coupon code, 50% off, both at wagertalk and sportsmemo.com until the polls close tonight, late on the West Coast. And I don't know, Ralph, do you know it's open until the Hawaii polls close?
Yeah, I think it ended up Hawaii polls close. I looked it up because we were talking about the coupon. Hawaii polls close 7 o'clock Hawaii time, which is actually 3 a.m. So it would be Wednesday. So any daily package up today on Tuesday, it's going to work for you. That's all I can tell you.
Okay, and that code, guys, again, is VOTE 2020. Good for today. And shout out to Proud Babylonian. Welcome in. Elliot as well. Nut Flush Allen. Welcome in, guys. Let's get into the games. We got Friday night action. 2 games on Saturday. Degenerate special as well. And best bets. Starting off Friday night here. 9:45 Eastern kick on FS1. A good one. We got a top 25 matchup. BYU at Boise State. Ralph, we're seeing the Cougars minus 3-point road favorites here. 59.5 being the total. You know, I just wanted to throw out a couple stats before I throw it over to you, Ralph. This is an interesting matchup with BYU having played 7 games. Boise State played 2 games. They're both, great bets, with Boise State cashing both of their 2-0, and also BYU 5-2 ATS. BYU has never won in Boise. I found that to be interesting. 3-7 overall against Boise State, kind of up against it for whatever reason in this matchup over the long term. And I think more importantly here, Ralph, keep in mind this is going to be for all of college football this week, guys. They're shut down today. There's no practice. I would actually look for that to hurt the road teams all throughout this week. And sure enough, we're seeing BYU only having, full scheduled practices here, Ralph, Monday and Wednesday, because it is a short week and they are the traveling team. I was really looking to load up on the Cougars, BYU here, but because of that, I'm kind of worried about it. I'm actually starting to look towards Boise State. Interested in your thoughts in this Friday night matchup.
Well, it's a great point. That's why Maction's not playing today, because of the election. They wanted the kids to vote, not have an excuse. I don't think it affects BYU that much, Drew, because you said they have 7 games already. If this were the first or second game for the road team, that'll be an interesting thing, and I'll check that. We'll talk about next week that those teams that are playing their first or second game on the road this week, does this day of practice hurt them with a travel day? It'll be an interesting theory to check. You talked about BYU not doing very well in Boise. How about this number, Drew? Nobody's freaking done well in Boise.
That's true.
Since 2001, here's Boise's record: 116-8.
Wow.
116 wins and 8 losses since 2001. So, again, any team you pick is going to have it. Now, my power rating's Boise 1. It opened Boise 1, and all of a sudden we saw all this BYU money. I will say this: they've played 2 of the weakest schedules. Obviously, BYU's schedule's been horrifically weak, with the exception of Houston. Boise, they're playing 2 Mountain West teams that are going to be in the bottom half of the Mountain West. But in the college football stat report sheet that I do, and it's posted free at Wager Talk, Boise is number 2 in the country at plus 3.0 yards per game. BYU is number 3 in the country at plus 2.9 yards per game. The number 1 team in the country is San Diego State, who's played basically the weakest schedule in college football and has blown 2 teams out. So both teams have had incredible success. I am going to take Boise in this. The line dropped a point or a point and a half when they found out Brockmeyer wasn't playing. Well, guess what? Jack Sears was the number 17 quarterback recruit at USC. He was going to be the USC starter. All of a sudden, they got a new head coach, and JT Daniels beat him out for the job. Remember, this Jack Sears guy came in and started at USC. Why he transferred to Boise, I had no idea. I think we brought it up on the show, Rob. Why would Jack Sears have transferred to Boise instead of a place where a Power 5 team where he could have played? So there is no quarterback drop back for me going from Brockmeyer to Jack Sears. And in fact, now Jack Sears has a second game under his belt. I have Boise power rated better. I have the blue turf at home at night. I have BYU, who's only played road games at Navy. You have to toss that out. And then they did look good at the second half against Houston. They did extol their power. but this is a strong, powerful Boise team. Will it make my card? I'm not sure, but it still is in my mix to be one of my top 10 or 12 plays so far this week on the Broncos.
Yeah, and good point with the road game at Navy and all the issues that Navy had going into that and the mistakes they made not tackling in practice before that one. So you're right, Ralph. Not sure how much to put into that. Robbie, want to get your thoughts here, but did want to throw out a stat like Ralph threw out. I was reading an article in Boise State, favorite at home in their last 121 of last 122 home games. So this will be only the second time in the last 123 games where they haven't been a favorite. Now that is from an article that I read, so I didn't go back and fact check it, but still obviously pointing towards dominance in the betting markets, kind of giving them the credit playing on the blue turf there, Robbie.
Yeah, and no question, Drew. I'll start real quick by saying that my power rating numbers showed up exactly the same as Ralph's. Boise State -1. Right there, if you were purely a numbers guy, you stop and say there's 4 points worth of value now with BYU up to 3, and you go ahead and play Boise. I'm just not sure, guys. When I go through these fundamentals, and I know that on surface value, and maybe for real, because I don't think there's enough Boise evidence yet to say one way or the other. But I still question Boise a little bit for a couple of reasons here. The keys to me look something like this. The Boise State run defense. Last week with a backup quarterback, Air Force had to go to Warren Bryant. They ran for 415 yards against Boise. Now, week 1, Boise's defensive stats were through the charts. Are off the charts because Utah State under Gary Anderson just hasn't figured it out yet, right? Utah State's done a huge plummet as far as offense is concerned. But those 415 yards concern me because Brigham Young, and again, Ralph makes the point of opposing schedule is lousy on both sides. So BYU, really nothing to brag about yet as far as the numbers that they posted. But boy, their offensive line, to me, looks like it can uproot anybody at this point in time. Now, they weren't healthy for a lot of those early games. They had some COVID issues, but they're in pretty good shape right now. So I question Boise's run defense against this BYU offensive line for starters. If that proves out to be the case, and BYU's offensive line is an asset in this game, Zach Wilson has dropped back to pass 221 times. And only been sacked 4. Can Boise, number 1, can they stop the run? Number 2, can they get any pressure on Zach Wilson? Jack Sears, obviously good quarterback. Zach Wilson, NFL first-round quarterback. I think there's an edge there. And it's funny, Ralph, you know, that the Hank Bachmeier, Jack Sears thing with head coach Brian Harsin, it's becoming an issue. It's no guarantee that Hank Bachmeier gets this job back once he's healthy. We don't know if he'll be healthy for this particular game. They really would. His injury was undisclosed. I think it might have been coronavirus. But I question the Boise defense at this point in time. And then you have to wonder a little bit, guys, about their passing offense. It's been good. It was good against Utah State. Remember that Air Force had all the defensive opt-outs to the next semester, so they have 0 returning starters, so I can't really have to take that with a grain of salt. And BYU has had that one game against Houston where their wide receiver speed is much more than what Boise brings to the table. So BYU's got the potential to slow them down somewhat through the year. I think fundamentally, I give Brigham Young an edge. Again, I said Brigham Young, Ralph. I apologize for acting old. But this particular game, guys, without having a real quality opponent, it's tough. I land on the side of Boise where value is concerned. I land on the side of BYU where fundamentals are concerned. The money's gone that way. If I didn't have to lay 3, I think I would play BYU if it were less than 3 because I think they can win this thing by a field goal. It's for all the marbles almost. You know, this New Year's Day 6 bowl game for the group of 6 teams. One of these 2, Cincinnati, somebody's going to get it. And this might be an elimination game. You know, I'm torn in this one, but I think if I had to, I would lean BYU because I trust the fundamentals a little more than the early power rating on Boise State.
You know, Rob, one point I want to bring out is at Houston. Now, Houston did stack the box, but BYU only ran the ball 24 times for 78 yards, only 3.3 yards per carry on the road. So, again, a stacked box is going to have you throw the ball less than you run. And, Drew, to answer your question, I went back. Boise was a home dog just a couple years ago. Remember Fresno when they were coming off that season? Fresno was a 2-point favorite, and Boise beat them. Then the 2005 Potato Bowl, Boston College came into Boise. Boise was a small home dog, lost the bowl game. And then they were a home dog in 2001 against Washington State and lost. So 2 regular season games since 2000 as a home dog, plus the bowl game against Boston College.
Yeah, anytime you're going back to 01 for stats, you know it's probably a good thing. So, man, good stuff there, guys, with BYU Boise State on Friday night. Heading to the Saturday card here as we're a little bit behind on time, but we're still pretty good. CBS 3:30 SEC game here. Largest outdoor cocktail party. We're not sponsored by the NCAA. We can refer to it like that. Even though 2020, it's likely not going to be the largest outdoor cocktail party. We got Florida and Georgia, 52.5 being the total here, Robbie. Bulldogs laying 3.5 in Jacksonville. What are you thinking with the Gators in the Georgia Bulldogs?
I think in Jacksonville, Florida, it still has potential to be the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, Drew. I don't know if
there's no rules. There's no rules in Florida.
That's right. I think we'll see some cups turned upside down in that one. You have to start here, guys, with these injuries to the Georgia defensive side of the football. I mean, it's becoming massive, and it's becoming a problem. They had guy after guy go out of that Kentucky game last week. And then on top of it all, they have maybe their premier player on defense, Richard LeCount, their safety, get into a dirt bike accident after the game, gets hit by 2 cars in the hospital. He's out indefinitely. Here's what you have here that's problematic for Georgia. Both starting safeties likely out of this game. I just mentioned Richard LeCount. His counterpart at free safety, Louis Sine, also likely out with an ankle injury. It gets worse because their run stuffers, their interior pass rushers, 2 top DTs, Jordan Davis, Julian Rochester, both likely out here. Now, Jordan Davis, there's a lot of people who follow Georgia that think that he is the most irreplaceable piece on the Georgia defense. His arm was in a sling in the second half of the game on the sidelines against Kentucky. Rochester, also a guy with 19 career starts. If they lose 2 guys in the middle of the interior, and if they lose the 2 deep safeties, you have to wonder what Florida can do to them through the air. Florida right now, as far as passing, we talk about Florida a lot on this show. We'll talk about him again because Kyle Trask continues to light it up, but he's got receivers. I mean, this tight end Kyle Pitts, who's been talked about since day one, continues to be a huge threat. And then some of the stuff that Kadarius Toney did last week was, highlight reel stuff. So they've got weaponry that can attack that weakness in the Georgia secondary. And not having 2 safeties is crucial. And not having interior pass rush is crucial. And if Florida can ever run the ball, if that middle of the line is softened up a little bit because of the absences, then Florida becomes more balanced, and you really have trouble if you're Georgia, because Georgia offensively, guys, we talked about this to start the season too. Hiring Todd Monken and bringing in an air raid offense when your head coach is one of those prehistoric running defense guys, will he turn the reins over to your new wave OC? And it doesn't look that way, right? I mean, Georgia ran the ball 74% of the plays last week. They continue to be a run-first team unless they're behind. When I went back and looked at their game logs, if they're chasing, they'll throw. If they're not chasing, this offense is the same offense as it was last year. And in fact, Kirby Smart over the weekend said, "We are who we are, period, end of story." Sounds a lot like Les Miles at Kansas when he, tied his OC down. And it sounds a lot like Jim Harbaugh first year with Josh Gaddis when he tied his OC down. I wonder, they'll get George Pickens back for this game. That'll be a huge help. But defensively, to me, Georgia's got some issues here against this particular offense. I think a matchup fits Florida just fine. I wanted to see how many Florida Gators, if any important or significant starters, got suspended for that brawl with Missouri. Turns out only one, Zachary Carter, starting defensive lineman, will sit the first half. Florida should be in pretty good shape as far as their personnel is concerned on the defensive side. And I'll tell you what, they used those 21 days off pretty well on the defensive side of the football, if last week was any indication, because they shut Missouri down. And, they had real difficulties on the defensive side. I guess from our standpoint on this side of the counter, we have to decide whether or not last week's defensive effort was a mirage or if it was a real turning of the corner. I think against this type of offense, it could be a turning of the corner. You see the movement down in the line here towards Florida, guys, and I agree with it. I think Florida plus anything over a field goal, which is still what we're getting. Power ratings don't indicate it because my power ratings don't include the exterior situations going on. But I think Florida plus more than a field goal is probably a good side.
I'm with you, Robbie. I'm going to hold off until Ralph finishes here. But I mean, Ralph, we do get 3 in the hook here. We get the better quarterback. Robbie pointed towards the defense, maybe making a turn here. Are you thinking the Gators as well?
Oh, I don't even need the hook. I'm on the Gators. Stetson Bennett has had regression, 18 of 40, 9 of 14. They're running the ball because they have to run the ball. They don't trust him. You have a much better quarterback, Kyle Trask, 18-2 ratio. Jordan Davis, all SEC player, NFL second-round pick. Richard LeCounte, All-American player last year, probably a first-round pick. You take those two linebackers, those two quarterbacks out of the defense, better quarterback, regression from Stetson Bennett. I like the Gators here.
So do I. I'm liking the Florida Gators plus 3.5. You can get it at almost every shop here in Vegas and offshore as well. Guys, remember the coupon code Election Day, but the coupon code is VOTE2020, 50% off packages at Wager Talk and SportsMemo.com. That coupon code is VOTE2020. Heading to Saturday night here in the ACC, Robbie, we got Clemson at Notre Dame, the number 1 team in the nation versus the number 4 team in the nation. This one in South Bend, 52 being the total. Clemson minus 5.5 road favorites. We got the Clemson Tigers 7-0, Notre Dame 6-0. But interestingly enough, both teams have kind of been money burners here, Robbie, with Notre Dame just 2-4 against the number and Clemson 2-5 against the number. So not sure how much that's going to factor in. Obviously, one of them is going to have to turn it around on Saturday night, you would think, Robbie. Clemson at Notre Dame, what are your thoughts here?
Well, let's get this out of the way first. DJ Uiagalelei, that's your quarterback for Clemson, the true freshman who played last week in place of Trevor Lawrence and played well. I think he got a little bit of, a few series under his belt, and then Clemson's defense came to the rescue in the second half, and Clemson took off from there. Statistically, it wasn't much of a contest. Clemson dominated most of the statistical categories in that particular game. Here's what I see, though, guys. Notre Dame has had a chance to play 3 dual-threat quarterbacks already this season. They had trouble with Devin Travis of Florida State, but they had no trouble with Malik Cunningham of Louisville. And last week, they had no trouble with Jeff Sims of Georgia Tech. I look at defensive coordinator Clark Lee here for Notre Dame to try and confuse the freshman a little bit. Notre Dame on defense has to be able to somehow counter the disadvantage in speed that they have. And we've seen it show up before when Notre Dame has played Clemson. They're just a faster football team. But they can probably counter that this week at home with some disguise stuff on defense to take advantage of a freshman quarterback who hasn't seen a lot of this. Last week was interesting to me. Jeff Hafley, the head coach of Boston College, was the DC for Ohio State last year when Ohio State played Clemson in the Fiesta Bowl. So I thought to myself, Hafley might have some kind of scheme cooked up here. He's seen Clemson before. I think he had good ideas, but he just didn't have the horses. Notre Dame probably will pay attention to what BC did, and they do have better horses to try and combat Clemson here. So we'll see if that works. I don't know if either team can run the football here. You're talking about 2 teams with the top 2 rushing defenses inside the ACC. Again, just like Boise State and BYU, not great scheduled opponents here for either team. Nobody's played anybody of significance as of yet. So you're still a little, in that gray area of how good each one of these 2 teams are. Notre Dame's got a very solid offensive line. We'll see if they can root the Clemson team out. The only advantages I find here, guys, and I think they come into play because there's been a lot of money against Clemson here, and maybe Clemson provides a little bit of value. Notre Dame's lack of wide receiver speed, I think, is going to make them one-handed on offense. Again, like they were a couple of years ago when Clemson shredded them. If they can't attack downfield, Clemson, little respect. And Clemson has the edge and ability to pressure the quarterback. Clemson has accumulated 28 sacks already. Notre Dame only 17. If Clemson doesn't respect Notre Dame vertically, they're going to come up. They're going to put pressure on Ian Book. He's a good quarterback. He can make plays happen with his legs, but he's going to have to. I'm not sure I could bet either side yet. I really wanted more than anything to bet under. But the odds makers kind of beat me to it. This total's 52, which is low in a college football game where both teams do have potential to quick strike in some instances. But I still might lean that way, guys. I think this is a defensive battle on both ends. And unless there's turnovers that lead to scores, maybe you can squeak out an under here.
And Robbie, we got the chat box saying, great pronunciation there. Can we get it one more time for the Clemson starting quarterback on Saturday night?
Yeah, I have it spelled out here. Uiagalelei. Uiagalelei. It comes out easier after you say it a few times.
All right, let me ask you this, Rob.
Yeah.
They also went to Tayson. Give me his last name.
Why you put me on the spot like that,
Come
Rob?
on. I just had to call you out because you wrote out the phonetics. All right.
I did.
I'm going to make this simple, guys. I like Clemson. You talked about Boston College not having the horses. Boston's quarterback, Jurkovic, was Notre Dame's quarterback. He was the number 4 quarterback out of high school, higher rated than Notre Dame's. Running back, wide receiver Gill, the 6th highest out of high school, Ohio State transfer. He is higher than Notre Dame's. They had elite talent. They just didn't have the line, which you talked about Notre Dame having the line. Offensively, though, their quarterback and wide receiver, Gill and Jurkovic, are probably one of the highest duos in the entire country. But again, you had a first-year head coach learning the systems. I will say this. Even though Notre Dame gave up that big first half to Boston College, second half they held them to 66 yards. Clemson. Clemson has held Wake Forest, the Citadel, Miami of Florida, Georgia Tech, Boston College, all to a season low. 5 of their 7 teams to a season low. If they hold Notre Dame to a season low, Notre Dame had 338 yards versus Louisville. On the flip side, Notre Dame's defense has held USF and Louisville to a season low, then some 2s, then some 3s. The lowest Clemson has had against an FBS foe, 450 yards. I look at what Notre Dame does against elite defenses. Okay, they played Clemson in the 2018 Bowl, scored 3 points, 248 yards. Georgia shut them down, 321 yards. Michigan held them to 186 yards with Book last year. This year, is Pittsburgh an elite defense? Yes, but here's the problem. Pittsburgh's defense is good, but when the offense goes 3 and out, the defense is on the field for so many plays that the defense wears down. So Notre Dame was able to wear them down. They're not going to be able to wear down this Clemson defense. And then I look at, it is the first road game for DJ. That has some issues with me. But when you're the number 1 recruit in college football, you're accustomed to this. You in high school, you're playing before 20,000 kids. You're playing in front of less than that at Notre Dame this week. I do like Clemson. I think we're getting a lot of value because of the Trevor Lawrence injury. I downgraded Clemson, just FYI for your notes. I downgraded him 5 points last week. I only downgraded him 2 points this week. Again, because it is a young quarterback making his first road start. So I by no means can say he's Trevor Lawrence, but He's been preparing. They're ready to go. This defense will make an appearance like they did in the second half against Boston College. Ian Book hasn't proven to me against any elite defense he could do anything. They're not going to be able to run against Clemson, allowing 2.7 yards per carry. Lean the under like Clemson.
Leaning under like in Clemson, guys. We got the Degenerate Special up next. Vote 2020 is the coupon code, 50% off Wager Talk and sportsmemo.com. Guys, we got the Degenerate Special here, 10:30 Eastern on ESPN. Washington at Cal, 43 being the total. Ralph, Cal -1.5 at home. Any quick thoughts here? You know, and of course we always got to say, Ralph, don't bet any money you don't have. If you're losing, don't chase. If you're winning, don't bet it all on one game. But, you know, people like to have a little action on the last game on the card here, and it's the Pac-12 Degenerate Special style. So if somebody needed some action, which way would you point them? Sidewise?
I never wanted action on those late games because I wanted to freaking go to bed. So now let me ask you, Drew. You always tweet out a Degenerate Special. Now that we're doing this video, is this the same game you're going over, or are you giving them a second Degen Special by following you at Drew Martin Betts?
It's undecided. I haven't kind of gotten down. I like to hear your two guys' opinion. Use that in my betting, and then get after the other games as well. So it's undecided. All
right. Well, let's talk spring practices. Cal 4, Washington none. Washington new head coach, new system. Returning starters, Cal 18 with a quarterback, Washington 12. Washington only 4 back on the offensive side. You're missing a 3,000-yard passer, a 1,000-yard receiver, your top 2 wide receivers, 3 offensive linemen, and you have 8 players from Washington on NFL rosters. Washington is not Clemson, Ohio State, and Alabama, where all of a sudden you lose 8 players and you rebound. Everything points to Cal. I love that they've gone 5-7, 7-6, 8-5 in Wilcox's 3 years. He now has his recruits in place. Their recruiting has gone up. They were 43 last year. They're 39 this year. Couple negatives. They have upset Washington each of the last 2 years. Last year, they were +13 against number 14 Washington. They won 20-19. Cal is 0-7-1 as a home favorite the last 3 years. Now, granted, this is a pick'em game, so they don't have to win and cover. They just have to win. The thing that's keeping me off this game is this. Last year in Pac-12 play, you were 4-5, and Washington was 4-5. So you both had the same records. Cal was -91 yards per game. Washington was +1. So you have a 92-yard per game difference from last year to this year. Last year, Cal was +13. If we turn it around and give a 2-point home edge, that means they would be +8 this year. They're -1, so that's a 9-point gap. Has Washington dropped that far? Maybe. Has Washington dropped 91 yards per game worth against Cal? Maybe. But even though everything I said, I love Cal for those reasons, because of this disparity from one year to the next, I can't get to the window with Cal.
Okay, can't get there just yet. Robbie, get your opinion here. We got Jamel saying hit the like button. Guys, we got over 300 people watching Wager Talk Periscope and Wager Talk YouTube. And only 47 likes so far. So setting the over-under at 70 likes. If you could please smash the like button. If you are liking the content, it does help us out. Robbie, interested in your thoughts here on the Degenerate Special, 10:30 Eastern on ESPN.
Well, I liked the under right off the bat, Drew, but the bettors got it all the way down to 43.5 now, and it still may be an under 43.5. I don't know which team to like because I don't know which one of these two is going to come out of this shoot with any fluidity on offense. Listen, I'll go back to what we talked about when we did our Pac-12 preview. Jimmy Lake takes over as head coach for Chris Peterson, right? When Chris Peterson walked out the door, offensive creativity went out the door at Washington. I'll go back to Jimmy Lake, who said, we don't want to run horizontal. We want to run vertical, right at people. We want to make them defend that first. Everything Jimmy Lake has said sounds like a defensive coordinator's vision of an offense. Let's hand the ball off. Let's be more physical. Let's go. I expect that out of Washington. Jacob Eason is no longer the quarterback here. You can bank on Washington being a run-oriented squad here into a Cal defense that's not going to give up much against the run. So I don't know where Washington's going offensively here. They've got a new offensive coordinator in John Donovan, who, remember, guys, as we go back, was very surprised he even got the job. But he's got a lot of connections here, and they wanted to get rid of the complexity of the scheme under Bush Hamdan and Chris Peterson. Very simple, run the football, 1st and 10, run the football, 2nd and 8, 3rd down, let's try and get a 1st down, let's go play defense. That's Jimmy Lake. The other side of this coin is Bill Musgrave taking over as the offensive coordinator for California. Listen, Bill Musgrave's been around forever as an OC, and it's no secret that his offenses, even in the NFL, are difficult to learn. They're as complex as any, and you've seen some of the offenses he's run in the NFL that are just stagnant. They can't get stuff done with this particular offensive system. It's not like Cal is overloaded with NFL offensive talent where they can, make up the lack of being able to learn the complexities of the offense with just physical skill. I don't know where they're going against the Washington defense. I could see 17-13 in this game, 20-13, something like that. My power ratings make Washington 2, pretty close to the line, but certainly nothing worth running out and betting. To me, guys, it's just a defensive struggle, a real rock fight. Normally in the degenerate special, we like to see balls going through the air, 65-yard touchdown passes. If we get it, I'm surprised. I think this game stays under.
Robbie, the complexity of the offense issue that you bring up there with Cal, it's something that I would say is even exponential in 2020, given all the offseason issues. It's something I'm looking to bet against. I mean, you bring it up in the total aspect, but what about, pointing towards the Huskies here at +1.5?
It could very well show up, Drew. I mean, there could be a miscommunication, which leads to a pick. You see it all the time. A receiver runs the wrong route. The quarterback thinks he's going one way, he doesn't go. So that stuff's too hard for me to predict as far as game is concerned. But I just know that Jimmy Lake, to me, is a defensive coordinator who's going to run his team like a defense. And he's a great defensive coordinator. He's been one in the Pac-12 for a while. I think they're going to be a slug-it-out type of team. Cal's already a slug-it-out team. You have Jimmy Lake against Justin Wilcox. That's as good a defensive matchup as you're going to get. Right. So, to me, I would have loved 46.5. Instead, I get 43.5. I still think that it can stay under. I mean, a 23-20 game cashes your ticket. And to me, that sounds high scoring in this game.
Okay, so your have to play is on the under?
I would play under. Let me ask you this, Robbie. Is it a game where you might look at the first half under, that they're even going to start slower the first couple series?
Very, very possible, Ralph. I mean, I guess, the only thing you run into in that is if they come out and make mistakes right away. I wouldn't expect Washington to make mistakes because I think they're going to hand off. And Cal's pretty conservative too. So I guess, I would definitely lean that way as well, Ralph. I think maybe you see, a 10-7 first half. Why not?
Yeah, that's a good point, Ralph. I mean, turnovers aren't always, especially big play turnovers deep in your own end. That's not necessarily good for the under there. We saw it last night in Monday Night Football as the over hits by 1 point, unfortunately. But guys, we got best bets here. Huge shout out to the chat box. Also, everybody that liked the show, well over 80 likes now. So the over does hit on the likes. And Ralph,
why didn't you set it at 110, Drew, you dummy?
Because I wanted to set expectations and I wanted to, set the hurdle low, low goals.
We hit 60,000 subscribers. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Now, while this show was on,
that's right. We did it. We did it.
Pat ourselves on the back here with the Pens for sure. Each and every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, this is the Best Damn College Football Show, where we will break down 3 big games, 1 weekday and 2 Saturday games, plus the Degenerate Special now. And now's the time for best bets. Going around the horn here, Ralph Michaels at Cal Sports LV, wagertalk.com. Give him a follow on Twitter. He's a great follow, guys, putting out trends and angles. Got a bunch of followers there on Twitter. Check out his packages at wagertalk.com. And also remember the coupon code VOTE2020. Good for today, 50% off. Check them out, wagertalk.com. Ralph, what do you got for best bets, buddy?
We cashed with Alabama first half 2 weeks ago. We cashed with Alabama first half this last week. So Alabama first half. Oh, they're not playing. They're not playing this. Yeah. You know what, Rob? I have two choices, so I'm going to go to Rob and then not duplicate his. Go ahead, Rob. What's your best bet?
All right, well, let's start off like this. Last week came up a little lame, had the Nevada UNLV over for this show. Probably a game I thought I should have had. Nevada with a 1st and goal at the 1. Could have gotten that game over, instead wound up with a field goal. But sitting at 6-2 through this show, I'm going to go to Florida, guys. I just think Florida plus the points here is the right way to go. I can't get over the Georgia injuries here. They're real. They're important. And even the 4 that I pointed out, Ralph pointed out an extra one in Jordan Davis, and there may be more. There's potentially 6 defensive contributors that could be out of this game, or at least, playing hurt in this one. So for me, Florida, hopefully Dan Mullen doesn't try to fight the referees in this game, but I'll take Florida plus 3.5.
I'm going Clemson, Drew. I was going to go Florida or Clemson, not knowing which. If Rob was going to go Florida, I didn't want to duplicate it. So, like I said, it's men against boys. I've watched Notre Dame play up in class too many times, and they are great at what they've done. They're an elite team that is just outside the top 10 talent-wise, and it shows when they're playing those top 10 guys talent-wise. So, give me the Clemson Tigers.
All right, Robbie on the Florida Gators plus 3.5. Ralph, Clemson Tigers. You want them minus 5.5? Is that the best number you can get?
I'm good with that. Yep.
Okay, so right there in a little bit of a dead zone. Would you say 5 is a dead zone in college football there, Ralph, or is that only?
Well, you give your best bet, and I'll have the answer for you.
All right, I'm trying to give myself a little bit of time here, but I've only gotten down personally on one game so far this week. So, Robbie, I'm going to have to double it up here on Florida plus 3.5. Is that all right with you?
Power to the masses, Drew. Go get them.
All right, guys. Yeah, I'll double it up. Florida plus 3.5. I'm joining Robbie for the best bet. Ralph on Clemson minus 5.5. And Ralph, any closing thoughts?
35 and 38 games the last 2 years finished on 5 in college football. So 35, we normally have 130 times half the game, 6. About 800 games, 30 of them, 30 out of 800 finish at 5 is your answer for each of the last 2 seasons.
Okay, good stuff there, Ralph. Follow him on Twitter at CalSportsLV. You want to throw out any closing thoughts here, Ralph, before we shut this down?
All good.
And Robbie Veno on Twitter at Rob Veno Sports. Check out his packages as well. Guys, remember the coupon code VOTE2020 today. Good for 50% off. WagerTalk, sportsmemo.com. Robbie, anything in conclusion?
Yeah, I'll just do some quick housekeeping here, Drew. Clean up some stuff from the Clemson game real quick. To clarify for everybody out there, when I said horses, I should have said defensive horses. That's what I was alluding to, because Jeff Hafley just didn't have those guys. Maybe Clark Lee has some better ones. I think Ralph and I are both pointing in the same direction in that game, because Notre Dame's inability to go vertically probably allows Clemson to creep up. We may see the same old story again in that particular contest. Pittsburgh, elite defense, Ralph, but in that game, as you mentioned, they couldn't move the football. Because Joey Yellen, I think he was in his first start in that game. Kenny Pickett was out, so that made it even easier for Notre Dame. A lot of reasons to like Clemson, including line value, guys. Power ratings that I have make Clemson 8.5, not 5.5.
Another reason pointing towards Clemson minus 5.5. That's Ralph's best bet. Robbie Veno and myself are both on Florida plus 3.5. Huge shout out to the chat box, guys. It was live all show. Thanks for liking the show. We'll be back next Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific time. Also, come back and join us for the Maction special. Every game on the board coming up right after this. So, guys, best of luck with your bets, and be safe. Till next Tuesday.